Hello, my name is Angela Webster, and I will be giving my persuasive speech on how the Gulf oil spill will send a ripple effect to South Florida and beyond. Because I live in Carabel, a small town in Florida, and one of Franklin County's primary communities, this issue has become of significance to me. David Rash, who is an attorney suing on behalf of the Franklin County businesses, argues that the ripple effect will impact the seafood industry, the tourism industry, and the families whose livelihood depends on the county's resources. I encourage you to understand the seriousness of this matter, considering that we are all Gulf Coast Community College students, and Gulf Coast is located in Panama City, Florida. How would Florida be with no beaches, no seafood, no marine life? Our Florida counties would not be able to survive if their key industries are damaged. On April 20th, 2010, there was a fire and explosion aboard Deepwater Horizon, which is a semi-submersible drilling platform. The fire and explosion caused the drilling platform to sink, and once it sank, oil began gushing from the ocean's floor. Now, this tragic incident is referred to in the media as the BP oil spill, the Gulf oil spill, or the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Interior Secretary Ken Salazar states that the failure of the rig's blowout preventer, which is a critical piece of equipment designed to shut off the flow of the oil in emergency purposes like this, has been the huge malfunction that has left oil gushing into the Gulf of Mexico. Oil spills cause widespread and permanent environmental damage and a loss of marine life, along with bringing economic repercussions. Research also states that the exact nature and duration of any impacts from an oil spill depends on a number of factors. The amount of oil that has been spilled and its behavior once spilled, the physical characteristics of the area, the weather conditions and the seasons, and the cleanup response. How they decide to clean it up, because in them cleaning up, they could also cause just as much damage as the oil has caused, not just for the marine life, but for human life. The biological and economic characteristics of the area and their sensitivity to oil pollution. And our sensitivity to the oil pollution, I think, will be very sensitive. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration estimates that 5,000 barrels a day of oil is spewing into the Gulf of Mexico. New York Times reported that BP told Congress that 60,000 barrels of oil could be spewing a day, because it's uncertain exactly how much. But just think of it, what the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration gives us as their estimates, and that of BP, who is mainly behind this incident, it's like 10 times as much. So with the uncertainty of it, I feel that it will definitely have a big impact in the end. Whatever the amount may have been, maybe the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration feels it necessary to ban commercial and recreational fishing in 4.5% of the Gulf Coast federal waters. Now, the NOAA lists fishing as one of the biggest industries in the Gulf of Mexico. Many fish that live in the Gulf of Mexico return to the Apalachicola Bay to spawn. Franklin County surrounds the Apalachicola Bay system, which is one of the most productive estuaries in the United States. It is said that the Apalachicola Bay system produces 90% of Florida's oyster harvest, and nationally the other 10%. And this is on an annual basis. Franklin County and its primary communities support a very active seafood industry. With a natural disaster as such, this county is definitely in danger of an environmental and economic crisis. Now, the oil may have not reached the county's shores, but it has definitely reached their pockets. Of the Franklin County residents, many of them depend on the seafood industry as their major source of income. Tanya James of the Franklin County Seafood Workers Association states that there are 2,000 people within the oyster industry. 1,480 are licensed oysterers. And then you have your shrimpers, your fishermen, your clammers, your crabbers, your shuckers, all the people who take part in making the seafood industry what it is. If 4.5% of the Gulf waters are banned to these fishermen, which in Franklin County, the longline fishermen are affected by it, because we have anywhere between 100 and 150 longline fishermen. And not to mention that most of these people within the industry are oystermen, and this has effect on oystermen too. Given this scenario, you can imagine what it will take from the oysterman's pocket. If they bring in an average of 15 bags of oysters a day, and they get paid $19 per bag, and you have 400 boats total. This effect in 30 days is over $3 million of revenue a month. It definitely has somewhat of a significance to this county. And many people feel like it doesn't, but I would have to disagree. Another source of revenue for the Franklin County is tourism. The community views the seafood industry, its boats and products, as their tourist attractions. With the uncertainty of the oil spill, travelers are hesitant to book their yearly trips here. Many of them don't want to come to the beach because they're not sure if the waters are okay, even though the media continues to tell them that they are. Some people are very hesitant about coming, so slowly, the business is dying. It's slowly dying. And due to the 2005 setback, when we had the 10-foot hurricane storm surge and the red tide, and we had a real estate boom during that year, we've already had to have assistance from the Office of Tourism, Trade, and Economic Development in the Florida Governor's Office. And here we are 5 years later in a much worse economic crisis. Reports claim that Franklin County will not be affected by the Gulf oil spill, but I find that to be untrue. I would say the spill has already caused problems for the county. These problems may not be obvious to those on the outside, but to the residents it's considered a state of emergency. And this is extremely unfortunate. The event is just beginning. Like a pebble dropped in a placid pond, the ripples will affect areas much further than any of us realize.